Are you ready to unlock the full potential of your Tobii Eye Tracker 5 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024? After patch 3 fixed those frustrating crashes to the desktop, there's still one issue. The settings are far from intuitive. But don't worry, in this video I'll show you how to set it up step by step, including how to tweak the profile settings manually. Stick around to the end for my personal settings to get you flying smoothly. And before we get started, if you are new to the Tobii Eye Tracker, I highly recommend watching my other video unboxing and setting it up. But this video will be specifically setting up the settings in 2024. If you are interested in getting the Tobii Eye Tracker, I do have a link in the description below with a special discount code just for you. All right, let's get started. Before diving into file editing, we need to set up a new profile in MSFS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our controls and go down to the Tobii Eye Tracker. Here I have Tobii Custom, and then I have Tobii. So what you can do here is click on the cogwheel beside the Tobii, and then you can duplicate. You could duplicate from the actual Tobii because you wouldn't have a custom one. And when you duplicate, you can then rename it to something that's easy to remember, like Tobii Custom. That way you know it's the custom one. And then you can apply to all aircraft, set as default. I'm going to press cancel because I already have this set up. And you can't make any changes in here. There are 7 axes, but yeah, none of this can really be changed. Even if you change the numbers, it's not going to have any effect. So what we have to do is go into the configuration XML file. So that's what we're going to do next. Now that you have your Tobii custom profile, make sure to click save and back before exiting out of the sim. And then you can go over into Windows Explorer because we're going to take a look at the configuration XML. And don't forget, you want to set a key binding for the reset your view for the Tobii Eye, and also to toggle it on and off. Because sometimes, like frankly, you want to look off screen and you're not really focused on the simulator, then your screen doesn't end up turning to whichever way your head's going. So to do that, we're going to take a look at the keyboard. This should be Alt 7 and Alt 8, but you're going to search for track, and there we go. So eye tracking reset is Alt 8, toggle head tracking is Alt 7. So I currently have the Turtle Beach flight deck in the plugged in right now. So I want to set a button for that. I've already set that. The reset button is set to the same button. If we take a look here, I have it set as the same button as my reset external view and reset cockpit view. So when I press the button to reset the Tobii Eye, it's going to reset my view no matter what back to center. And then the other one is I'm using the trigger button, and that will be to toggle the head tracking on and off. And it's got 2 buttons, but that's how my the Turtle Beach flight stick works. Let's save that. Let's just go back in. If I turn my head to the left, and then I click my reset button, it's going to reset back to center. But my head is still to the left. Now if I turn my head to the center, my view is actually going to be more to the right. And that's just because center is like this. So what you then want to do is just get your head straight and then press the reset button. Now I'm moving around right now. I'm going to press the trigger button to toggle it on or off. And look, I'm now moving my head and nothing's happening. Toggle it back on and we're back in business. There you go. And an easy, quick way to get out of the sim, because you might be going in and out of the sim a lot with this, is just press Alt F4 and it'll completely kill out the sim. That way you're not wasting 2-3 minutes just trying to get out of the sim. In Windows Explorer, you're going to want to make sure that hidden files are shown. To do this, click on View, then go down to Show, and then check on Hidden Items. And you're going to want to go to your Community folder, because this is the easiest way. Go to the Community folder, especially if you already have a shortcut to it. And then you're going to want to go up 3 levels. So up 1 level is Packages, then another one is Local Cache, and then the third one is Microsoft Limitless. So you're going to want to go to Microsoft Limitless. Instead of the local cache where you would find your community folder, you're going to want to go to System App Data or Data, whichever way you want to pronounce it. You're going to press on WGS, go into that folder. Now you'll have 2 folders, one with a long, complicated name and the other simply called T. You're going to open up the long, complicated name with a bunch of numbers and letters. Now, because you just created that profile, you're going to want to go to Sort by Date Modified, and the last folder should be the profile that you just created. And then when you go in here, you're going to have 2 files. One's a container. You don't need to open that. But the other one, you're going to open this, and you're going to open it with Notepad. I'm not going to open this because I already have a file that I've been working with already. So when you open that file up, you'll see that there's 7 axes, and they're named from axis 0 to 6. And then you have axis sensitivity. So this is the settings that I have from the intro of this video. It's exactly the settings I have. I'm going to put these in the pinned comment below. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take a look at each one, because it's not intuitive to which one does which. So we'll test them all out. That way you can know exactly what the axis does, and then you can tweak it to your liking. Because, like, for example, axis number 1 is set to 0, and that is for eye tracking. For me personally, I don't like eye tracking. I know it's a Tobii Eye Tracker, but in Flight Simulator, eye tracking, I don't find it useful. The head tracking, yes. But like in your case, if you like eye tracking or you want to try a little bit of it, then you know exactly, okay, axis name 1 is for eye tracking. Let's put it to 50 or 25. So what we'll do in this video is I'll put everything to 0, and then we'll start with axis 0. We'll put that to 100, and then we'll move down. So that way you know exactly how you can tweak it for your liking. However, you can use copy and paste my settings, but to each their own. Like, not everybody likes the same thing. Like, in my case, I get like motion sickness, so lots of movement is not great. So I've got it where moving forwards and backwards, I can do it, but very little. While other people, they like it at 100%, and they're fine with that. For me, I don't like it. And then like rolling, but we'll go through these settings and see what each of them will do. So we're gonna go keep this axis name 0 at 100, and then everything else will be at 0. And I do have a backup of this, so that way I don't lose my settings. So everything's at 0 except for axis number 1, or sorry, axis name 0. Then you're going to go to the top, save. Now you can go back into the simulator. So we're in the simulator. We're going to do a free flight. And our testing is going to be done in the Cessna 172. We're going to go to Halifax. And actually, you got to back up the time because it's actually the sun has already set. So I'm going to go fly now. Okay, so we don't have to fly this, but we can tell right now this first setting does not provide any kind of movement. What this setting is the eye versus head tracking ratio. So I have it at 100%. So 100% means that 100% of the max angle is going to be achieved through head tracking and 0 from eye tracking. And the reason why I know this is because the recommended value on the Tobii Eye settings on their website for 2020 was 0.85, and that is what the settings, the original settings I saw from somebody else that shared them was 85. So that 85 would mean that 85% of the total movement would be via your head, and then to get that extra, the extra 15% angle would have to be with eye tracking. So that's why nothing is moving right now. We're gonna now exit out of the sim. We now know that the axis 0 is the eye versus head tracking ratio. So we're gonna do a control F4. And now we're back to our sensitivity. All right, so we're gonna change this from 100. We're gonna put it to 85 because we know that this next setting is gonna be the eye tracking. This axis 1 is for eye tracking. If you don't want eye tracking, you put this to 0. If you want it on, then you can put it to 100. And then if you want less sensitive eye tracking, then you're going to reduce this number. So we're going to go with 100. And we might still not see this 85 in effect because we don't have any other movement other than the eye tracking. So let's try this out. And we got go up, file, save, and then restart the sim. So right now I'm going to turn on the camera. And you can see here, I am moving the camera around with my eyes. My head's not moving. Now, if I move my head around, there's nothing. And the reason for that, and the only reason why it's moving slightly is because it's seeing that my eyes are moving. The reason for that is everything else is turned off, but the eye tracking is on. We also have that 85 on the axis 0, which again is just 85% of the angle. So if I turn my head like this, I would only be able to see a certain point, and then my eyes would have to track to push the view back further. So it would almost be like me sitting like this and then moving my eyes to move the angle. So now we know axis 0 is the ratio between head tracking and eye tracking. Axis 1 is for the eye tracking, setting that up. So if you're finding that it's too much, if it's looking around too quickly, I would try this at 50% and then work your way back. But in my case, I'm turning it off because I don't use this in flight sim. It's just too much, and especially for me when I'm streaming or creating content, I don't need lots of eye movement. Like, it's, I don't know. It seems a little invasive. Like I, everywhere I look, you know, the camera's going to follow me. Okay, so we're going to press Alt F4 and get out of here. So we'll keep the eye tracking on, and we're going to keep the axis 0 at 85. So that's the head to eye tracking ratio. And then we're going to put axis number 2 to 100. And let's go save that, go back into the sim. All right, so we're back in the cockpit, and we've got the axis 0 at 85%. That's the ratio between the head and eye tracking. So like I am like barely like moving my head, and we're moving laterally, or actually like turning, because when I say laterally, that would actually mean like shimmying over, but no, we're not doing that yet. So we've got axis 0 at 85. We've got axis 1, which is the eye tracking, at 100, and then the axis 2 is this. It's the head movement. So this, I actually dialed it back to 60 to slow it down, because 100 is just way too quick. Although I've got like lots of movement, like I don't even have to like turn my head too much to actually get to be able to see the back. And the thing with this is that's actually my eyes that are pushing it back further. So that's where that 85% of head tracking will stop, and then the extra 15% will be the eyes that are going to push that angle back even further. So we can go back to just reset the camera. And yeah, so like I can like turn my whole head around. If I like really crank my head to my shoulder, then I'm almost all the way back. But then I can move my eyes and push it even further. So now what we're going to do is we'll now introduce axis number 3. So we're going to do Alt F4 again. And actually it's axis number 3. We're going to put that to 100. Then we're going to save. And then we're going to get back into the sim. So we're back in Halifax with axis number 3. And what this is the center stabilization. So this time around, my head isn't moving as quickly. I do find when I'm looking right, it moves quickly. I think that might be just because of my eyes. But yeah. That's what this is, because we've got this at 100, and in 2020 Tobii recommended 0.2, so 20%. So we've got this at 100%. I brought this down to 10 in my settings, but so this is to help reduce unwanted camera movement. So when you're making small head movements, so you do have to move a lot in order to have the camera, the head tracking. But that's what I'm finding with this axis. So we're gonna do Alt F4. What I'm gonna do also is I'm going to take off the eye tracking, because for me it's just too distracting, and I want to see what the actual movement is, not just my eyes, because it's very easy to move the camera with the eyes. Um, but yeah, this setting is definitely the center stabilization. So we're back in the file. What we're going to do is we're going to take off the eye tracking, and we're now going to go on to axis number 4. we're going to put this to 100, and then we'll see what the difference is and what exactly this axis is for. So we're going to go to the top, save, and now we can restart the sim. All right, so now we've got axis number 4 on. I've taken off axis number 1, which was the eye tracking, so I'm looking around and there's no eye tracking, which is good. Because it becomes distracting when we're trying to see what the other axes are for. But if you look, I am now like turning my head and it's coming back to center. So what this axis is, axis 4 is the head tracking auto center. So what it's going to do is it's going to try to bring you back to center. Although like I'm not really moving much, it's keeping me center. And this is also because we have axis 3 at 100%, so it does take a lot more head movement in order to start the tracking. But yeah, I personally don't like this because then it's too much. In with my settings, I have this at 0. We'll take a look at my settings at the end, but yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into setting the axis number 5 to 100%, and I think this is where we're going to see that you can actually move around forwards, backwards, side to side, and I think even up and down. We'll see that in the next axis. So now we can, I'm going to click on the screen and then click Alt F4, or else I'm going to be shutting off my recording again. So here we're going to go axis 5, put that to 100, and we're going to leave 6 still at 0. And then we're going to save. And then we can start up the simulator again. All right, so now we got axis 5 on. So that is movement. So like we can now move around. We're not just stationary in our seat. And as you can see here, I'm outside of the cockpit. So to go back in, we're going to reset the Tobii Eye Tracker. I've got a button set on my Turtle Beach flight deck stick, so I'm going to press that. Brings us back here. Press it again. And now that I've done that, it should be set to this every time I start. The only reason it was like that is because it's the first time I load in with those settings. So as you can see here, I am actually moving around the cockpit. So I can move in, zoom in, and then back out. I can turn my head. So axis 5 is all about the movement. So in my case, I want a little bit of movement, but I really don't want too much, because like if I move in my seat, and me being a Frenchman, I talk with my hands and stuff, so I also move when I'm talking. So then I can very easily, it can get distracting very quickly, especially in my case as a content creator. For you, you might like it. You might like, you know, it's almost like intuitive, because like if you're in the cockpit and you lean in, well, you're actually going to see much closer. So you can do the same thing with your screen. You move in and it's like zooming in. I personally, I just want a little bit of movement, and then I can use like a quick look button, and like see this is the quick look left, and then I can actually then move my head to like expand my view if I really needed to. But I find, yeah, this is too much movement for me. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into axis 6 and check that out, see what that does. So I'm going to do Alt F4 and now we're going to set the axis 6 to 100. So with axis 5, if you put that to 0, you're not going to have that moving around up or down, backwards, forwards, side to side. You're not going to have that. I think I've got this at, I think it's at 10 or maybe it's at 25 because I think 10, I've already tested it out. 10 didn't really have any movement, but then at 25, it was just a slight movement. And that's really all I need. If I really want to zoom in, I'll use another key in order to zoom in. I just don't like the moving around. It just causes like motion sickness really in the end. So let's go save this. So now we're going to boot up the sim and take a look at axis 6. All right, so we've got axis 6 on at 100%. We're still outside of the cockpit, so we're going to reset our view. Then reset it again. And here we are inside the cockpit. We've got the rotation here. But yeah, this... That's a nice camera view. You want to see what's inside her head? There's nothing. Yeah, there's way too much on the axis. Like looking back and forth. That's way too quick. But I'll show you my settings again here before we conclude everything. But this, this definitely seems like it's the in and out. I know number 5 was movement, but I think this is more sensitivity, moving forwards and backwards, because it just seems like there's a lot more. It's very sensitive to movement. Oh yeah, like we're definitely. So if you actually take off right now, let's just take off, and we'll see how. If I move my head, I want to see once we start a climb if my head will pop out. And this is sort of bad too, because when you're going and your head's moving in and out, like you think you're lifting off, but you're not. You're still on the ground. It's because you're seeing that dash moving up. Yeah, no, your head doesn't pop out, but I could definitely. Yeah, it's a lot tougher to get up there. If I stood up, probably. But yeah, definitely because we did have the movement all around. But I just think it's more sensitive now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to Alt F4 this in the sim, and we're going to go back to our settings, and I'm going to show you exactly my settings and give you some final recommendations. So to me, it's still a little bit confusing. Axis 5 and 6, because I think they're both head tracking sensitivity, like position wise. So I'm gonna put number 5 back to 0, and then take a look at it with that at 0 and 6 at 100. Let's try this. Save it and go back into sim. So this is with axis 6 at 100%, but axis 5 is at 0. So what I think is, because axis 5 is set to 0, it nullifies whatever we have for axis 6. Because axis 6, I think it's more so the speed of the movement within the cockpit. Because as you can see here, I cannot go side to side or back and forth or even up. And but with the two of them on, I found 5 was the movement, but then 6 was the speed of the movement. So that's where I think it's going, because in my settings I actually have something for both of them. So talking about my settings, we'll actually go take a look at my settings again right now. Let's do Alt F4 here. So for axis 0, I have that at 100. That's the head to eye tracking ratio. So if you have this at like 85%, what that means is 85% of the turn will be done with your head tracking, and then the extra 15% angle can be done with eye tracking. So your head will bring it to a certain point, and then you can then move your eyes over to the right or to the left, and it will go beyond that point. Uh, Axis 1, I've got that at 0 because I don't want eye tracking at all. And that's why I have Axis 0 at 100. Axis 2, I got that at 60. So that's like the head tracking sensitivity roll. What I found was 100 was just like way too much. And then 50 was not enough. I found 60 was the best range for me. Then uh, axis 3, that is the center stabilization. I think this, people were saying 19, and even Tobii was saying 19 for 2020. But I actually reduced this down to 10, just because I wanted to be able to move my head and not have it constantly going back to uh, I think it's trying to stick to the middle. And actually, this goes in with number 4, axis number 4, head tracking auto center. I have that completely off because when I'm looking in one direction, so if I turn my head like this, I don't want the screen to start going back to the center. I want that off. So I want my head to go back, and then that's when the screen's going to go back. And then we looked at axis 5. That I have it at 25. So that is, I want some movement going forwards, backwards, side to side, even up, down, but I don't want a lot. And then that's where axis 6, it's more so of like the, uh, I find it's like the sensitivity or the speed of it. And that I have it at 10 because I really don't want fast movement. And again, these are my settings based off of my liking and as a content creator. But you can take these settings and create your own, completely customize this. But really, the gist of this video is to give you a baseline, but then also taking you through all these axes to know exactly what do each of them do, because I saw this maybe a week ago and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to set this up," but Tobii, come on, let's let's know what these axes are for. And really, in the end, it's not Tobii's issue. It's actually an Asobo issue that they have to create something in the game because Tobii can't create anything in the game. Tobii's giving them the setup. Now it's Asobo to implement it. Let's finish off by going in to see what my settings look like in Halifax in the Cessna 172. This could actually change based off of aircraft, but it's more so the space that you have in the cockpit from aircraft to aircraft. Like, in the Cessna 172, I could stick out my head, but maybe in the Beluga, I might not be able to stick my head out the window. You could try that out. I wasn't gonna try out every aircraft, all 120 or even more than that. But yeah, let's go in and see it for one last time. My settings in the simulator. All right, so we're back in the cockpit with my settings. But do remember, always reset the view just to make sure that it's set correctly. So I've got it all set. Now I can look to the left. I can look to the right. Not too far back, so I don't always need to see the co-pilot in my face. And then here I can actually lean in a little bit. Well, I'm actually leaning in a lot, but in the sim, I'm not. It's not a lot of movement, because as we saw earlier, having a lot of movement, you can think that the aircraft is lifting up, but really it's just you moving around in the cockpit. So that's good. But again, moving side to side, looking down, and looking up. And I really have to get on my chair in order to pop out of the cockpit, but and there's no eye tracking, which I like. But that's it for this video. I really hope this helped you out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you watched all this video and you're still seeing if you should get the Tobii Eye, I highly recommend it over trying to use your phone or camera. There's several other options out there. I know the Tobii Eye is a little more expensive, but it's got both the head tracking and eye tracking. Eye tracking, I would use that if I was like in a first-person shooter. While flight sim, not so much, because especially as a content creator, I don't want to be moving around a lot. Like here, I do have like some movement just like as I'm talking, but it's very subtle compared to when I had everything like maxed. So, yeah, if you're interested, I will have a link in the description below with a discount specifically for you, not for your neighbor, but for you specifically. All right, well, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.
Yeah, sizzle and popcorn in the building. Strap in, buckle up, let's fly high. Flying higher together, y'all know the vibe.